This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we've just seen kind of a jaw-dropping move by Trump on the executive order front. He just signed executive orders targeting two people in particular. That was Chris Krebs, who was a cybersecurity official from his first term, and Miles Taylor, who was a Department of Homeland Security official from Trump's first term, basically directing his own law enforcement agencies to investigate these people. How is this not, first of all, the biggest national scandal that we're facing right now amid the other national scandals, but also how in the world is this legal for him to be directing his Department of Justice to investigate people who he views as political enemies?
Yeah, I mean, we have crossed so far beyond any red line that we can't even see the lines anymore. I mean, like lines are like off in the distance someplace in the past. And you raise the right point, which is this should be a front page national scandal every single day. I mean, the fact is that when Bill Clinton, who by the way at the time was not even the president, paid a visit on an airplane with Loretta Lynch, who was the attorney general, that consumed right-wing media and a lot of the legacy media for days. When Barack Obama visited Eric Holder for his going away party at the Department of Justice, that was viewed as a scandal. And here it is. The president of the United States singled out two individuals by name, like literally put each of their name in an executive memorandum and ordered that his government investigate these individuals. It is absolutely inappropriate. It is way beyond the line. And yet there is largely just like a shrugging the shoulders, like, well, Trump will be Trump.
In terms of the legality of what he's doing, knowing full well, eventually we'll find out that there are no actual crimes that were committed by these people. And so is there a case that Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs can wage against this administration for some political retribution?
Yeah, well, it's definitely political retribution. By the way, just to be clear, among the reasons why Chris Krebs was targeted is that he said that the 2020 election was not rigged. Full stop.
He
Full stop.
deigned to acknowledge objective reality. How dare he?
Yeah, I mean, like literally, that is why Donald Trump says that he is targeting Chris Krebs. But Brian, I want to address though your central point, which is that isn't it illegal? Like, isn't it the case that Donald Trump can't do this? And are these folks going to go to court? So I think they have a choice here. Obviously, if there ultimately was an effort by the U.S. government to impose some sort of sanction on them, whether it be a criminal prosecution or something less than that, then they'd be able to go to court and say, this is inappropriate. In the same way, by the way, the law firms went to court and were able to block those. The complicating thing here is that the Trump administration would say, well, we haven't done anything, right? Like the president said this, but it's not like we have done anything yet that has actually caused these two folks harm. Now, I would argue, well, of course they've been caused harm because they have the federal government now investigating them. But that's the game, though, that you're seeing the DOJ lawyers play in court in a lot of these executive orders is that people run in and say these executive orders, these are illegal. And the Department of Justice is like, oh, that was just like something he wrote. It's just like it hasn't become anything. So it's not yet ripe. There's not yet standing to challenge it. I think that these two individuals have a really good case that just the mere fact that these executive orders or executive memoranda, I think they were issued is enough. But I think that will be the question of whether they go to court now or wait to see if something happens.
So I get this idea that they might not have standing until something is actually done. But then there's also the atmospheric impacts of being at the receiving end of an executive memorandum, basically just targeting two people by name specifically from the mouth of somebody who has the biggest bully pulpit in America and somebody who commands the attention of people who are going to direct their ire on Trump's behalf to those people. And so what happens in the event, for example, that there are bomb threats called into these people's houses, that there are bricks thrown through their windows, that they become the targets of targeted harassment by these people, that they can't go certain places. This isn't something that Trump himself specifically did at the hands of the DOJ, but the fact that he noted them by name, that's going to have atmospheric impacts on a base that's already proven themselves perfectly willing to do Trump's bidding in the public sphere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The fact is that this will have second and third order effects. So you mentioned one of the third order effects could be private harassment that they get from people who are Trump supporters. Even before you get there, I mean, if you're Chris Krebs or you're Miles Taylor and you are trying to, earn a living working for a company, and if that company has any interaction with the government, I mean, this is not going to be not going to make that any easier. If you need to yourself interact with the federal government, maybe you need to get a Social Security payment for your parent, or you need to get a passport. Like, the Donald Trump. It is not just that what he has done here is unconstitutional. It's not just that, as you say, people in his administration will pay attention because he's the president. This is an administration of sycophants. This is an administration of people who pride themselves on saying they are not independent of Donald Trump, and that they take every utterance Donald Trump makes to be, somehow down from up high. And so the immediate second order effects could actually be quite consequential. And again, I hate to keep tying it back to the law firms, but the law firms that have fought are fighting precisely because they're saying those second order effects could put them out of business. Well, now you're not some multi-billion-dollar law firm. Now you're just an individual whose only offense is telling the truth about 2020. You've gone on with your life. It's now 5 years past 2020. You've gone on with your life, and you've got this hanging over your head. And before you get to the right-wing trolls, you've got to interact every day and fear that at any time the full force of the federal government could come down on you, could come down on your loved ones, your businesses, your associates. It is absolutely what dictators do,
Yeah.
is to try to use these kinds of powers to intimidate their political opponents and to target their political opponents. And my question is, you and I are talking about this, but where the hell is the legacy media on this?
Yeah.
Where is the outrage? Why do we not see a concerted focus on this? Because I promise you this, if this was aimed at a reporter, it'd be on the front page of
Right.
the newspaper every single day. They'd have like a little box,
Yeah.
covering it.
Knowing full well that there are those second and third order effects, is there a way that he would have some that any of these guys would have any standing to bring forward some type of case, even if there isn't direct harm at the hands of the DOJ, but like understanding the media environment that we live in, understanding, for example, that when you have somebody like Donald Trump who tweets "Be there, will be wild" on January 6th, and suddenly tens of thousands of people come down to the Capitol and in Washington D.C. and ultimately storm the building. Like we know because we have precedent from Donald Trump issuing his edicts and saying things in the public square what can happen, even if he tries to preserve some degree of plausible deniability and say, well, I didn't tell them, to storm the Capitol. I just said, come here. Like we already know. And so you can lean on this idea that he didn't directly come out and say break the windows and enter the building in the same way that he can say, well, I didn't tell anybody to harass Krebs and Taylor, but we know what happens. And so they can kind of play these games, but here on Earth One, we know the practical consequences of his actions. And so do they have any standing in that respect to be able to push back against Trump?
Look, as I said, I think that they have standing to move forward now. My point is they may choose not to because they may want to just wait to see what plays out. Everyone's
Yeah,
got to make their own decision here.
right.
But I think that the harms of this are immediate in
Yeah.
across a range of consequences. And you're exactly right. I mean, you and I talked about this, at the time when Donald Trump stood before the Department of Justice and said that I am a bad person and that I am a communist trying to undermine America. Like it was neither lost upon me that sitting in the front row was the Attorney General and the head of the criminal division and the head of the FBI. And it wasn't lost on me that he's got his legions of followers and fans
Right.
and adherents around the country. They read that as well, and you do see an uptick in that when he mentions you. I mean, I can tell you that from firsthand experience. When Donald Trump targets me by name, I see an increase in that kind of hate that is targeted. And as you point out, and I think this is one of the main messages that I hope people walk away with, is he knows that that's the effect.
Right.
Like it's not like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to do that. No, no, no. He's doing it because that he knows that that's one of the
Right.
impacts that it will have, and for precisely that reason. And by the way, he's not the only one. There's a certain billionaire who may have even purchased a social media platform who knows it as well,
Right.
and who dismantled a lot of the protections that were in place, at least there. So I think these two individuals, I feel for them. I think that they have been wronged. I think that they have a case in court, and I support them if they decided to bring it. I also understand the reasons why they may decide to wait. But all of us need to be outraged by this. Like today he's targeting those two people. Next he'll target some other group, and he feeds off of the negative hate that these folks then experience.
Right. And also feeds off of the fact that when he sees one person, one group, one entity, one company capitulate, that emboldens him to know that he can do it even more, which is why it's so damaging that we do have these law firms that are opting to capitulate as opposed to standing up and fight. And I mean, to have these law firms kind of sometimes even before they're targeted kowtow
Oh
to
yeah.
Trump, in the face of, as opposed to what you're doing, which is you are called out by name in front of the Department of Justice, in front of the Attorney General, and yet rather than capitulate, you've opted to fight back. So to that exact point, look, we need fighters, and nobody exemplifies that more than Mark and his team. So for those who are watching right now, if you'd like to support the work that Mark and his team are doing, the best way to do that is to sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting in elections. It's an invaluable resource that I use on a daily basis. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.